Hey, everybody, and welcome to Health Coach Tip Tuesday. Today, we are talking 8 questions you must ask every potential client before they hire you. If you are ready to dive in, drop the word client into the chat, and we are going to send you the top 4 questions to ask every client checklist. This is the Health Coach Tip Tuesday show, where every week we share tips, tools, and resources for health coaches and professionals so that you can confidently solve your clients' health issues and grow your career as a health coach or professional. I am your co-host and FDN Director of Course Enrollment, Piper Gibson, and he's back this week. Many of you know the man next to me. This is Reed Davis, founder of Functional Diagnostic Nutrition, and he is here to share his deep knowledge and expertise. How are you, Reed?
Fantastic. Thank you. Looking forward to having another good little talk with everybody here today.
Yeah, great. I'm really excited. We are going to talk about why it's important to really interview our clients before they hire us. And I know that you have some questions that you find are really important that we ask all of our clients, really to find out what motivates them and why they're wanting to make changes. So what do you feel, Reed, is one of the first questions you should ask when we first speak to a potential client?
Well, depends how you're warming up, where you meet them, how you know them, and things like that. But I have these 8 qualifying questions. The main thing and the main point to make and to establish is the paradigm. You know, the last thing on the planet I let anyone do anymore is pick my brain. You know, because it used to be in the day people call you up and say, "Well, I got your name from Mrs. Smith, and she says you helped her with her migraines, and I have something similar to that, or I was just wondering if you could help me too." And so I wondered if I could just pick your brain for a minute. Mm-hmm. And I say, no, you can't pick my brain for a minute. If you want me to help you, then I'll ask you some questions, and then we'll decide if I can help you or not. Because, that's not how it works around here. So I've had to flat out tell people, no, can't pick my brain. There'll be an opportunity for you to ask me some questions, but if I'm going to help you, let me ask you a few. Would that be okay? And they say, okay. So the first question I would say is, do you mind if I ask you a few questions just to see if we could help you or not? There's no sense in us having a talk if I don't think I can help you. But maybe if I can't, then I would know someone else who can. So you need to set it up as like, I'm going to help you one way or another. Either I'm going to be able to help you, or I'll refer you to someone else who can if I'm not the guy for you. So it's all about the paradigm shift of you're interviewing them to see if they would be a good client. And because some people don't make good clients, not to me. I need people who are going to be able to answer my 8 questions with some sanity, and if they're crazy people, I generally find that they don't make very good clients. Now that's being kind of mean. You get what I'm saying. In a loving way, I would find someone else to work with who's more able to negotiate their particular problems. But they got to be able to communicate very clearly. So the first real question is, what's your main complaint? What brings you into the office? Why are you calling me? And they had to be able to just name one. And if they say, well, back in 1942, I had this accident, and then I started getting headaches, and then I gained some weight. And I go, no. I go, if I'm going to help you, you have to let me determine if we could work together or not. So if I had a magic wand right now, and I could wave it and remove one complaint. What is your one main complaint? The thing that really bothers you most? Something about the way you look or the way you feel that you really want to change. And if they still can't get the story, and they still have 8 things, and so then they're not really self-aware enough. They're not paying attention to the question. And I find that a little bit aggravating, thank you. But, I'm going to say, I'm going to bring them back to the one. And if I can get them to focus on that, then, okay, we're teaching them how to be a good client by answering the question. Next one is obviously, well, how often does that bother you? And the reason we ask that question is to see how much of a problem it really is and how motivated they would be to follow your program. Pretend you have a program for that, like we do, to follow your program. Because if they say, oh, well, it only bothers me once a month, that's not very motivating. They're not going to change their lifestyle around very much if it only bothers them once a month. If they say about once a year, I have a migraine. No, they're not going to hire you. So waste of time. And again, I'm being very businesslike, very professional, and I'm handling this with them in a loving and kind way. I'm telling you guys this from the business. You're a health coach, you're a professional. You got to know this stuff. And so I'm going to ask them, what's your main complaint and how often is that bothering you? And they need to answer relatively sanely. And then I could go on to the next question, which is, well, how long has that been going on for? Because again, even if it's something that sounds severe and it's been bothering them every day, but if it's only been for 2 weeks, well, every day for 2 weeks I've had, that's really not long enough. It's not a long-term chronic stress-related condition, which is what we work on. They really might be just looking for relief care. And if they're just looking for relief care, hey, I just need, this has been bothering me for a week or two, and it's pretty severe and it's every day, and I want to know what's going to make it go away. Well, they're not a health coaching client. They're just someone looking for relief care. And you might refer them. You might know something, you could give it to them and send them on their way, or you could refer them to someone, or even their physician, like for relief care. So they have to know what their main complaint is, 1 or 2 at the most. They have to know, how often does it bother them, and it's got to be relatively frequently. And it hasn't been going on for some time. If they say 2 years, I'm going to say, wow, gosh, I'm really sorry to hear that. That's not normal. If you've had asthma or migraines or tiredness, fatigue or moodiness, irritability, or aches and pains or digestive problems, diarrhea, constipation, heartburn, gas, bloating, if you had that every day for 2 years, that's the problem. So I might be able to help you. Let me ask you a couple more questions. What have you tried so far that obviously hasn't worked, but give me an idea of the things you've been doing? And man, people will go through a litany of this doctor, that doctor, this, the witch doctor, the whatever, just tried this, tried that, supplements, standing on my head with carrots up my nose, just whatever it might be. And it gets interesting. And again, your response should be like, I'm very sorry to hear that. It sounds like you could be very frustrated and probably waste a lot of time and money on this thing. So I don't want to waste any of your time or of your money. So I need to know a few more questions to see if we can work together. How does this affect your life? What does it prevent you from doing that you really want to do? And if they say to you, and the reason you ask this question is because you really got to, they might be just curious. Again, they might want to sort of just get to that brain picking thing. They're putting up with your questions, but you're trying to open their mind to, whatever it is, it's not working for you. And if you really want to fix it, that's the only way I would become your health coach, or that I would let you hire me. So, you need to be able to answer that question. How does this affect your life, or what does it prevent you from doing that you really want to do? If they say like, oh, I'm fine, I get along with it, I've learned to live with it, they're a lousy client. They were not going to be someone who's motivated to do the things you ask them to do. I don't want someone that says, I've learned to live with it. It's not that bad. I still work every day. I come home. I just take my 3 shots of whiskey at night and I'm fine. They're not going to turn out to be a good client. So you have to ask that question. How does it affect your life, or was it prevent you from doing, and get a sane answer. If they say, well, I haven't thought about it before, but gee, I guess I've quit dancing. I don't go out at night anymore. I'm only working part-time. I don't even feel like I know my kids or my spouse anymore because I'm always just sort of in my little pain space, And so it's really good question to ask them and make them think about, so that they start to get the idea that, wow, I better change. But you're not done yet. You still have to ask them another question. And this is the one about, and this, by the way, sometimes for health coaches, you've got to get out of your comfort zone. You got to start being professional, actually interview people and ask them some serious stuff. Like, what or who may stop you from doing the things that I might ask you to do? Like, what would stop you from completing a health rebuilding restorative program? Let's pretend we have one for a minute. What would stop you, or who would stop you from completing a health rebuilding program? And conversely, or maybe you have someone who's really supportive in your life. And what you're trying to get to is there a teamwork? Is there something you deal with? Is there some, how much support are they going to need? Do they have a spouse that's saying, you better not spend any more money on supplements, because you're wasting your money with that crap. It doesn't do any good anyway. If they got a person like that in their life, you can think twice about working with them. You don't, listen, we get to pick and choose in this business who we work with. And you might want to have some affinity for them, and that means you like them a little bit, these kind of things. So you got to get into their heads a little before you accept them as clients. Look, we all know that if you want it more than they do, then that's not a good thing. They got to want it more than you do. And so we're trying to have the kind of conversation, and it's just a conversation. You could do this, and they don't even, you could do this where they don't even know they're being interviewed. They've been introduced to you. Hey, Reed, here's my friend Judy, and she's got all these problems. Maybe you can help her. And I wouldn't just do an official intake at that moment, but I would ask her a few of these questions, and see if they're sane enough to work with. And so I would ask them definitely, if they say, well, what do you mean? I would say, well, do you have any fear about not succeeding? Do you have any problem with spending money on yourself? Do you have the time to work on yourself? Are you so overwhelmed with everybody else's problems that you can't work on your own? So those are the kind of things you need to discuss in this question number 6, which is who or what would stop you from completing a health building program. Now, the next one, again, this is where some coaches, you've got to really dial it in. If you want to be successful, if you want to have successful coaching practice, you have to know what they really expect from you. So it's fine. Now, let's say everything's going fine so far. They give you their main complaint and how often it bothers them, how long it's been going on, and what have they tried so far. And it seems like they're pretty game to do stuff. And they have, a good reason for doing this, something about the way that they are living that's unsatisfactory, and they're sick and tired of it, and they're done, and they're ready to do something. And also that they have some kind of support, or, no, there's no one. I've got my own money, and I've got the time, and I don't have any real fears, and, I feel pretty good about moving forward if it's something I decide to do. So if you've got all that answered, then you still need to ask them, well, what would you reasonably expect to achieve working with me? Let's say if we just engaged for 90 days. Let's say we did a 90-day program. What would you reasonably expect? And this is, again, it's a check on whether they have reasonable expectations. If they say to you, I need to lose 100 pounds in a month so I can get into my bathing suit or wedding dress, so that's not reasonable. If they say, I've got, fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue and irritable bowel, and I've been diagnosed with Hashimoto's, and I want it gone in 3 months. That's not reasonable. So you can really get a sense of who your potential client is, and you can start really formulating whether you want to work with that person. And there's only one more question, and I say this quite honestly, openly, and frankly with people like that. I say, listen, you've had this thing going on for all this time, and you've tried a lot of different things, and you seem really motivated, because it's been keeping you from dancing and playing with your kids and having fun with your spouse. And, it looks like you got a pretty good support team, and, there's no real reason why you can't complete this program. And your expectations seem pretty reasonable. I think we could probably get that done, but there's only one more question after you, and that is, how committed are you to getting rid of this problem? And I need you to quantify that for me, Mrs. Smith, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being very committed and 1 being like not too committed. Like, where would you fall, in that range? And then I would work to get them up to a 9 or 10. So if they say, well, I'm about a 7, I would say, well, I'm first sorry to tell you, I only work with 9s and 10s. But I have a question for you. Like, why are you only a 7? I mean, you've had migraines 5 times a week for 3 years. You've tried 18 different things. It's preventing you from working, and you can't, do this and that. And you say you've got a, pretty good team and reasons, and you've given some fairly reasonable expectations. like from that, they just decided, well, if I just had normal headaches, once in a while, I could accept that. Now that's not good enough for us, but you get that they have reasonable expectations. You still need to get them up to a 9 or 10. So if they say I'm a 6 or 7, say, well, I'm glad you're not a 2, because 2s, like, they never change. 4s never change. Even 5s, they don't change. I go, but 6s and 7s, if we can get them up to 9s or 10s, they have a good chance of being successful. So I'm glad you're not a 5. Why aren't you a 5? Why are you a 7 instead of a 5? Well, I'm pretty, I really want to get rid of this, and I've got to look better and feel better. I have a lot of life to live, and I have relationships to nurture and things. So I say, and then I just ask them, well, then why aren't you a 9 or 10? And they go, well, I would be a 9 or 10, but I've been burned a couple times. I've said I was a 10 before, but then, the person I was working with, and you start to really get into their psyche a little bit and start to see where they're coming from. And you can say, listen, that person was not me, or, you have to, respond accordingly to whatever they say. But you can say, listen, if everything you've told me, and you can repeat, and you got to have these questions down, and you got to have the feedback. You can make notes. It's perfectly fine to make notes, and hold them. So, Mrs. Smith, you just told me you have migraines 5 times a week for the last 3 years. It prevents you from doing this and that and this and that. And you go, so, if you're not a 9 or 10, or if you were a 9 or 10, I would accept you as a client. But I need you to be a 9 or 10. And guess what? They go, I'm a 10. I'm in. You're right. They realize that they just haven't been committed enough. You've already coached them. You've already coached them up on how important this is to change. And you've delivered basically for free. Now, when you give someone a free onboarding session that makes them think about their problem and connect to how bad it is, and that now's the time, then you've already earned half your fee right there. So if they say, okay, great, fantastic, there's still a couple of things that you need to go through, but that's the 8 questions, and we can go through the rest of the onboarding session if you want to, or at least another couple tips there.
Yeah, so I would love some more tips. One tip I want to know is, what do you say if you cannot get them to a 6 or a 7? What is your or a 9 or a 10? What do you say to them? Just, I'm sorry, I cannot help you.
I tell them they're not committed enough. I tell them they're not committed enough, and to come back when they are more. And you go figure it out. And people will call you. I've had people I talk to on Monday or Tuesday, and I'm telling you, by Friday they're calling you. You just have to give it time. You can't want that sale more than they want your services. You can't be attached too much to whether they become your client or not. It takes a strong person, and it takes a good professional business person. But I've had a lot of counseling and coaching myself over the years. I'm a good mentor for all of our trainees and graduates, but I've also been mentored by some of the best. And so I know that these things are basic principles that don't change over time, and that your person has to be committed at a very high level, or they won't be successful. I give you a really quick example. I had a guy who claimed he had an 80% success rate with smoking cessation coaching. That's all he did. I'm a smoking cessation coach. I help people quit smoking. I have an 80% success rate. And I called him, I said, that's bullshit. Nobody has 8 with that, because that's almost, he goes, Reed, it's about one thing. It's about who you accept as a client. That was 18 years ago, probably. And I never forgot that, like you just said, like, it depends who you take on for clients, and you can have those high success rates. And guess what? All this business comes from referrals. Why? Because people are going around saying, this guy actually helped me quit smoking. This guy helped me quit smoking, and it's because he onboarded the right people.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And I think that's key for sure. So after
there's just 2 more things.
Go ahead.
If they're a 9 or 10, I say, listen, I'd be willing to accept you as a client. I would be willing to accept you as a client. And I think I can help you, whichever order you want to say that in. I think I can help you. I'll be willing to take you as a client. So if it's okay, now I'll go ahead and I'll tell you how I work. And they're all ears. Like, yeah, oh, good. Tell me how you work. Now they haven't hired you yet, but and I tell them how I work, and that we run labs, and that we look at the underlying causes and conditions. We're looking very far upstream at a number of healing opportunities. So I'm not just going to run, it sounds like your gut, so I'm going to run a gut test. Because guess what? They've already done that. And well, it sounds like your hormones are out of balance. We're going to run a hormone test and we'll see what's going on. It's not about that either. You got to know the cluster of healing opportunities to look at. And it's really all of them: the hormone, immune, digestion, detoxification, energy production, nervous system. You got to be able to look at a system or a cluster of these functions that in every case, in all your chronic stress-related conditions, these are the pillars. Now, we've done other shows on those things you can refer back to, but you tell them about that, and then we fix them all simultaneously. We don't just work on your gut or on your hormones or on your immune system or on your digestion or detoxification. We're going to work on every cell, every tissue, every organ, every system, the entire organism simultaneously. We have a holistic program that works on all. And that's the difference between us and everyone else. Everyone else said, it sounds like this, and they went to fix that. They could have even been right. That might have been one little piece of the puzzle, but because that's the only thing they didn't. They didn't look at the whole entire organism and fix it all at once. Then things just keep getting out of whack. And so, because of we call it the chronic stress cascade. And so when you have that system backing you up, you know that you can help just about anybody. And so the other rules I have is that they have, and then after I explain it, they go, that sounds great. And you go, so now if it's okay, I'll tell you how I charge. And then I give them my prices. And I tell them that there's my fees and there's the other fees, the lab fees. I have no control over those, and anything you might buy or something like that, but or anything else you might need. I'm not a chiropractor. I'm not an acupuncturist. There's things that you might need in your sphere of self-care. But here's how I work. We're going to figure everything out for this much money. I give them my package price, and they can accept it or not. They can say, okay, well, here's my credit card. Here's my credit card. Because the only other two rules, there's three main rules. They have to be a 9 or 10, or I pass. It doesn't mean they couldn't start as a 6 or 7. I got to get them up to a 9 or 10, which is it's another 5-minute conversation. And so if they're 9 or 10 and they're willing to pay me today, like we can start today. Like if you're not willing to start today, then I can't accept you as a client. And that's the deal. So they have to be willing to pay me, and they have to pay me up front, pay my fee up front, and start right away. And then they're a client. If it's I'll call you later, then it's call you later. You're not my client yet. And you don't get to pick my brain. You don't get to do any labs. You don't get to get on the path to health through me. I'm hireable. I said, I think I can help you. I'd be willing to take you as a client. I need your commitment level to be 9 or 10. I need you to pay me up front, and I need you to start right away. And that's the deal. And if not, it's okay. I'll refer you to someone else. There's this guy I really hate down the street. I'm going to send you to him.
So, Reed, we actually have a question in the chat that I'm going to ask. So if you guys are just watching, just joining, we are talking about the 8 questions you should ask every client. Make sure to drop the word client into the chat, and we're going to send you the top 4 questions checklist will be delivered to you. But Donna wants to know, when you're explaining how much things cost, do you ever talk about the potential cost of supplements?
It depends how much detail they want to get into. I mean, I don't purposefully avoid it, but I don't bring it up either. If they ask, I say, definitely supplements can be a part of the program. They certainly aren't the entire program. I mean, obviously you need to eat right, and you need to go to bed, and you need to exercise, and we need to figure out what the stressors are and eliminate those. And we find if you do those things, then supplements can also play a big part in that. I said, you probably spend about as much as you've been spending at Starbucks every month. How much do you spend at Starbucks every month? And they all bow their heads and go, about $300. I go, well, there you go. That might cover it, something like that. Or on other habits, maybe from the conversation you picked up that they like their milkshakes, or I don't know what, but it's a lot less than what you're spending on these other sort of bad habits combined. So, and usually that's how we go about, is we find things that you will not be spending money on, and then there will be some things you spend your money on. It's probably not going to be a huge investment beyond what you're already spending. And frankly, if you think about the cost of being ill, it's hundreds of times more than what you might spend on supplements for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that's not, that sounds a little salesy maybe. And sometimes you got to be a little salesy, because if you want to help that person, you've got to have an influence on them. And if you can replace a bad habit with a good one, you've done them a big favor, and you've served them. So I won't hide the fact, Donna, it's a good question, fair question, if they ask.
She said she loves the Starbucks analogy.
Yeah, right. Like, I see people and they buy a new Gucci bag every month. They buy a new pair of shoes every month or two. They buy a new dress every month. Look, can like, wear what you got for a couple months. Like, believe me, you are not going to spend any more money than you're already spending. You're just going to spend it on something else.
And I think that's a great mind shift that makes them think, oh, yeah, I spend money on a bunch of stuff I shouldn't. So you're right. Like, my health and investing in my health is definitely more important. For sure. Well, Reed, thank you for coming on today and sharing those questions with us. I will tell you, everybody that's watching, as a practitioner, I always say, do what Reed says. Just do what Reed says. So I use these questions with my clients, and it really guarantees that I'm going to get quality clients, and I'm going to get people that are really committed to working and being successful. So I do have a pretty great success rate because people are really doing the work. So thank you so much, Reed, for coming on. Do you have anything else that you'd like anybody to take away today?
Just that if the customer is someone who you don't really want to work with, if they just rub you the wrong way, if you just don't feel any connection at all, if there's no affinity there, then pass. And when you pass, you're not losing anything. You're actually opening up space for someone else who is right for you to come in. And you have to have this idea that there's a flow, and you got to get into that flow. And sometimes letting something go, like passing on someone, is really cool. Like, how many times have you told a client, no, I don't want your business? And you don't use those words, but you get to say, no, I don't think I'm the right person for you. But you know what? I do have someone who I think is the right person for you. And you refer it to that person. Like, go see my yoga instructor. You need to just get your body and shit. Go see my Pilates instructor. Go see my whoever. And this way you're still helping them, but you're not committing to work with a person who you have no affinity for. And that's, like I said, so I think that's my last thing there.
Yep. I've done it. I've worked with somebody who I didn't have a great affinity for, and I ended up firing them as a client because it just did not work out. They did not want to listen and do what needed to be done. So yes, sometimes you have to learn a lesson too. For sure.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
But it's better to learn from someone else's mistakes than your own. So we're telling you, it's a mistake to work with someone you feel no love for. It's just think about that.
Yeah, just don't do it. Don't do it. Well, Reed, thank you so much for joining me. We will be back here, same time, same place next week with another fantastic topic to share for Health Coach Tip Tuesday. If you are just joining, you're watching the replay, make sure to drop the word client for the 4 questions to ask every client checklist. Thank you guys for joining us, and we will see you guys next week. Bye, everybody.
Good job, guys. Thanks for everyone who made a comment. Thank you.